I got 20 plus companies to waste money, mailing my friend the Constitution. The fluorescent lights of Henderson Analytics hummed a monotonous tune, a soundtrack to my increasingly soul-crushing existence. My cubicle, a beige prison cell, felt smaller each day, the walls closing in like Mr. Henderson's micromanaging grip. He wasn't just a bad boss, he was a meticulously cruel one, a master of passive-aggressive put-downs delivered with a saccharine smile. And then there was Mark. Mr. Henderson's golf buddy and self-proclaimed constitutional scholar, was a regular visitor to our office. He'd perch on the edge of Mr. Henderson's desk, spouting off about the Founding Fathers and individual liberties, usually after cornering someone with his, did you know, monologues. He was the kind of guy who'd correct your grammar while simultaneously mansplaining the Bill of Rights. The fuse was lit during a presentation I'd spent weeks preparing, a minor data glitch, genuinely something outside my control, caused a momentary hiccup. Mr. Henderson seized the opportunity. "Alex," he said, his voice dripping with false concern, "perhaps if you'd paid more attention to detail, we wouldn't be in this situation." Then Mark chimed in, his voice booming across the open-plan office. "You know, Alex, personal responsibility is a cornerstone of a free society. Accountability is key." He launched into a diatribe about how the Constitution was designed to prevent such carelessness, using my minor mistake as a springboard to pontificate on the decline of Western civilization. The whole office was watching, stifling laughter, or worse, nodding along in agreement. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. But mostly, I wanted to make Mark regret ever opening his mouth. That evening, fueled by resentment and cheap beer, I vented to Deborah, my coworker and the only person in that office who understood the daily torment of working under Mr. Henderson. "I swear I'm going to lose it," I said, slamming my fist on the table. "Mark needs to be taken down a peg. He's insufferable." Deborah, usually the voice of reason, surprised me. "Sign him up for a bunch of junk mail," she suggested with a mischievous grin. "Make his mailbox a personal hell." That was the seed. A tiny, insignificant seed that would soon blossom into a truly absurd and all-consuming plan. I started small. I created a burner email account and signed Mark up for newsletters about things I knew he hated: vegan cooking, modern art, interpretive dance. The next day, I watched with a quiet satisfaction as he scowled at a flyer for a tofu convention, discarded it with a dismissive sniff. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough to compensate for the humiliation I felt. I delved deeper. A quick scroll through Mark's social media revealed a predictable obsession with guns, traditional values, and all things overtly patriotic. Bingo. I signed him up for every conservative newsletter I could find. Pro-gun advocacy groups, right-wing think tanks, survivalist websites. You name it, Mark was suddenly subscribed. Free samples of patriotic coffee and freedom-flavored jerky started appearing in his mailbox. Then, I discovered the goldmine-free copies of the Constitution offered by various organizations, patriot groups, educational foundations, even some conservative book publishers. I went into overdrive. I created multiple fake email addresses, each with slightly different variations of Mark's name. Mark A. Henderson, Mark Allen Henderson, M. Henderson, Henderson, Mark. I requested constitutions from every organization I could find, spinning elaborate tales about Mark's newfound interest in constitutional law. The volume of mail arriving at Mark's house increased exponentially. At first, he seemed mildly annoyed, complaining to Mr. Henderson about the leftist spam. Mr. Henderson, oblivious to my involvement, found it hilarious. "Serves him right for being such a windbag," he chuckled, loud enough for me to hear. That only fueled my obsession. I felt a strange sense of power, a warped satisfaction in knowing that I was the architect of Mark's postal purgatory. Deborah started to get worried. "Alex, this is getting out of hand," she said one afternoon, catching me as I was meticulously crafting another constitution request. "He's going to figure it out. And what if these groups start, actually contacting him?" "He deserves it," I mumbled, my eyes glued to the screen. "He humiliated me." "But this is disproportionate," Deborah countered. "It's just a lot." I ignored her. I was too far gone. The revenge plot had become a consuming obsession, a way to channel my anger and frustration. I was the puppet master, pulling the strings of Mark's increasingly chaotic mailbox. The deliveries became comical. The mail carrier started giving Mark wary glances. Neighbors gossiped about the overflowing mailbox. I even saw a UPS driver struggling to unload a box filled with Constitution pamphlets. Then things took a turn. One afternoon, I saw a stern-looking man in a dark suit talking to Mark on his front porch. He had a badge clipped to his belt, a postal inspector. My blood ran cold. Had they traced the request back to me? Was this the end of my meticulously crafted scheme? The next day, Mr. Henderson summoned me to his office. "Alex," he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "I had a rather interesting conversation with Mark yesterday. Seems he's been having some issues with his mail." He paused, his eyes narrowed. "And let's just say, he mentioned a certain surge in interest in the Constitution. He didn't explicitly accuse me, but the implication was clear. He knew." I panicked. I scrambled to cover my tracks, deleting emails, clearing my browser history, and scrubbing my online activity. I felt like a criminal, desperately trying to erase the evidence of my misdeeds. But it was too late. A few days later, Mark confronted me. I was getting coffee in the break room when he cornered me, his face red with anger. "I know it was you, Alex," he said, his voice trembling. "I found the fake profiles, the burner email addresses. You did this, didn't you?" I stammered, trying to deny it, but the guilt was written all over my face. "Why?" he demanded. "Why would you do this to me?" I mumbled something about the presentation, about the humiliation, about the need for revenge. Mark just stared at me, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You're pathetic," he said, his voice laced with contempt. "I'm tempted to turn you in. You know this is illegal, right?" He stormed off, leaving me standing there feeling sick and ashamed. The fallout was swift and brutal. Mr. Henderson, sensing an opportunity to solidify his power, used the situation to his advantage. He called me into his office and gave me an ultimatum: confess to everything or face termination. I confessed. I told him everything. About the fake emails, the Constitution requests, the whole ridiculous scheme. He feigned disappointment, but I could see the gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. He had me right where he wanted me. I was suspended without pay for 2 weeks. Mark refused to speak to me. Deborah, though sympathetic, was clearly disgusted by my actions. When I returned to work, the atmosphere was icy. I was ostracized, an outcast. My cubicle felt even smaller than before, a constant reminder of my failure. The flood of constitutions eventually subsided, but the damage was done. My reputation was tarnished, my relationships were strained, and my petty revenge had ultimately backfired. Was it worth it? Absolutely not. I had let my anger consume me, turning a minor slight into a full-blown obsession. I had hurt people, damaged my career, and ultimately achieved nothing but a hollow and fleeting sense of satisfaction. I still see Mark occasionally, at company functions or in the hallway. He always avoids eye contact, his face a mask of disdain. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he's still receiving the occasional piece of unsolicited mail. A lingering reminder of the Constitution conspiracy and the moment I lost my mind. The hum of the fluorescent lights still fills the office, a constant, monotonous drone, but now, it's a soundtrack to my regret, a reminder of the day I learned that revenge, even the pettiest kind, is a dish best left uneaten.